Would you believe me if I told you that fall camp opens this month? Yeah, July 31st, I believe it's first day of practice. So it's right around the corner. Top 3 position battles and why these 3 position battles could make or break Tennessee's season in 2024. That and more, it's your Monday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what is up, good people? Welcome into your Monday edition of Locked On Vols. I am your host, Eric Kane. Can't thank you enough for making Locked On Vols a part of your first listen, your first watch each and every single morning. You everydayers, tomorrow is your day in terms of if you want to ask me a question, comments, concerns, questions about Tennessee football, baseball, basketball, football, recruiting, whatever the case may be, at _Kane or at Locked On Vols. That is coming up on tomorrow's show. I'll be accepting questions at _Kane or at Locked On Vols. DMs, you can tweet me, and of course, Locked On Vols on the YouTube channel. Today's show is going to be a fun one. We're going to go through top 3 position battles for Tennessee entering fall camp and why those position battles could make or break Tennessee in 2024. Second-year players we're expecting to have major big-time leaps for Tennessee football in 2024. That's in segment number 2. And our boys over at That SEC Podcast did their quarterback rankings in segment number 3. Where does Nico Iamaleava fit in? And there's a unique twist on those quarterback rankings, and we'll bring that to the table in segment number 3. All that and more. You can find us, watch us, listen to us, subscribe to us, all that for free right here on a Monday edition of Locked On Vols. Before we get into it, I do want to make mention real quick. Shout out to JT for tweeting me over the last couple of days or whatnot. More and more of you guys have come forward and said, "Hey, I listen on Spotify and the audio is low. Spotify, the audio is low." I have no clue what's going on, guys, and I do apologize. It sounds like it's a Spotify thing. So if the audio for this podcast seems to be a little lower than normal and you're listening on Spotify, JT tweeted in and said, "Hey, go in to your audio quality was low for some reason. Switched it and everything's great. Go into your settings, audio quality, and then adjust." And if you go into settings, audio quality, it's going to give you a ton of different settings that you can pick. And for some reason, it might be the low setting might be checked for you. It's happened to several people. So all you need to do if you're experiencing these difficulties, settings, audio quality, and adjust that audio quality. Again, it seems like this is a Spotify situation, not necessarily anything that you did or I did or whatever, but wanted to pass that along. Big thank you to JT. All right, let's dive into it. Your Monday edition of Locked On Vols starts now, and shout out to Garrett for giving us some of these topics that we're going to run with here on a Monday. Top position battles for Tennessee entering the 2024 season. Well, I'm going to go in reverse order, and there were a couple more position battles and everything, but for the most part, Tennessee kind of knows what's going to be going on, who's going to be where, and kind of what players are going to be encompassing what position groups heading into fall camp. But a couple of these are big. Honorable mention, I would go safety. I think Dont'e Thornton, at least to start the season, is going to be one of the safeties, and I do believe that Jacoby Thomas from MTSU is likely going to be the other safety. However, I think John Slaughter, a second-year player that we'll mention in segment number 2, is certainly pushing to be a safety there. I think Will Brooks is a guy that Tim Banks and Willie Martinez trust in the back end to play an awful lot. I think that Jordan Thomas, who I believe is going to be Tennessee's starting nickelback, the star position, could play safety as well. But for right now, I think it's going to be Jacoby Thomas, but potentially John Slaughter or somebody else. That's an honorable mention. LB2 is where I'm going to start off with right here. And I say LB2 because it's the wheel linebacker position. We know that Keenan Pili is going to be the Mike, right? But in this 4-2-5, in this multiple defense that everybody's running nowadays, the 2 inside backers, one's a Mike, one's a Will, but they're interchangeable. So say Keenan Pili comes out, it's not straight Aaron Carter goes in. If Aaron Carter's in there playing the other position, it could be Jeremiah Thielander. Like, just because you're number 2 on the Mike or number 2 with the Will on the depth chart doesn't mean you can't play the other one. They're interchangeable, and I've talked to a couple of different Tennessee linebackers about that, and that's how it was when I played. And I know that it's different and everything, but I mean, you got to be interchangeable if you're in the box players. Now, those in the box players, sure, you bump out, you cover the number 3 wide receiver, you're out in the flat, out in your hook curl, and sometimes you're carrying number 2 up to the safety who's got deep middle third of the field or whatever. But they are interchangeable for the most part. So these guys got to be able to play both of those. So what I'm getting at here is I'm calling it LB2 because Keenan Pili is going to be out there. So is LB2 going to be Arian Carter? Is it going to be Jeremiah Thielander? I don't know. We'll see. Arian Carter, of course, missed the last couple of weeks of the season, was not 100% full go in spring. We know Jeremiah Thielander grew and got exceptionally better over the course of last football season. We knew that he took steps in spring, and we know that he and William Inge have been hitting it off. Both those guys are going to play. I think Caleb Perry's going to play. I think we'll see about Jalen Smith. We'll see about Edwin Spillman, who hit the ground running. We'll see about Jordan Burns, another guy that was not here in spring, but is a part of this class. We'll see how they all kind of file in there, but linebacker is a rotational position, so a bunch of those guys are going to play, but who's going to start to fill the void of an Aaron Beasley and of Elijah Herring who left? That's going to be intriguing between Jeremiah Thielander and Arian Carter. And I think Arian Carter has the highest upside, but I think Jeremiah Thielander is a really, really good player. So LB2, opposite of Keenan Pili, playing that will position, that's one position battle I'll pay attention to. Number 2 would be wide receiver 2. So many times in our mind, people ask me on the GQ or on Twitter or whatever, like, who's going to be wide receiver 3? We don't know who's going to be wide receiver 3. Well, how you count those off, without getting into technical terms of the X and the Z and the Y and all that type of stuff, your wide receiver 1, your RW1 is the Justin Jeffersons, is the, whenever, all three, everybody was accounted for, the Cedric Tillman, for Tennessee. The wide receiver 1 is the Julio Jones at one point in time. You know what I'm saying? Like, those are the established, outside wide receiver. Your opposite outside wide receiver is our WR2, okay? And then your slot, or your off-ball wide receiver, playing off the ball, that's your wide receiver 3. And so we know that wide receiver 1, when healthy, is going to be Brew McCoy. We know that technically wide receiver 3, the slot, is going to be Squirrel White. So who's going to be that opposite of Brew McCoy, on the outside over there? Is it going to be someone that's been here for a while, and Caleb Webb and Chaz Nimrod, who's been taking steps? Is it going to be Dont'e Thornton, who had the best spring out of anybody, in my opinion, who's going to be stepping up and taking that spot and running with it? Is it going to be the new guy and Chris Brazel, who came over from Tulane that Tennessee went out and got in the transfer portal? Is it going to be Mike Matthews, who had a really, really strong spring and scored a touchdown in every single scrimmage that they did? The competition there, wide receiver 2, if you will, is pretty vast. And even if Brew McCoy, who looks like he's going to be ready to go for the season, of course, we'll see how much contact and all that stuff he's doing, when camp starts out, there's more than enough to kind of hold over if he needs to take a day or two, if you know what I'm saying. So wide receiver 2, the outside receiver opposite of Brew McCoy, I am so intrigued with. That is my number 2 position battle. And then number 1 is going to be left guard, okay? If all is healthy, we know that Lance Hurd's your left tackle, Cooper Mays is your center, we know Javonte Spraggins your right guard, and we know that John Campbell is your right tackle. Who's going to be that left guard? Well, Tennessee had a cast of characters in there towards the end of last season. Jackson Lampley got a couple starts there, and it started the bowl game in spring practice. Dane Davis, who I think's the swing man and kind of the quote-unquote sixth man that can play every single position. He was primarily Tennessee's left guard with the offensive line in spring ball, so that they can make sure that somebody was in there and they can get a good look for the rest of the offense. And, of course, Dane Davis can start there potentially as well. He's going to be your backup tackle on both sides, but he might be your left guard. Is it going to be rising sophomore Sham Umarov? Had a good spring, started to come along a little bit, probably the highest upside of any of these guys. I'm intrigued to see where he is in spring practice and how much lessons he learned in spring practice that can put him in position to win this battle. And then you have Andre Carrick, who only started the first couple of games of last season before ending the season with injury. He's got a lot of he didn't get a whole lot of playing time at Texas, but he got a lot of early playing time here at Tennessee. So he knows the position. He's got the offensive line coach in his favor as well. Who's going to be the starting left guard? I mean, I could see it literally being any of those 4 guys right there. The safety net, and I mean, maybe you're at your best with Dane Davis. I don't know. I don't know that. We'll have to see what spring practice looks like, but we know Dane Davis can play it. We know Jackson Lampley can play it because he played a ton of it in a fill-in duty. He played some at the beginning of last year when they had kind of a rotation. He played a lot against Vanderbilt. Of course, started the bowl game against Iowa. And actually, I think he started the Vanderbilt game as well. Nonetheless, Andre Carrick started positions there. And then, of course, Sham Umarov, who was the freshman last year. They got a whole lot of run at that position in spring practice. We'll see exactly where that is, come fall camp, and then come second week of fall camp, third week, and then, of course, getting closer to game week. Those three positions are crucial, right? Tennessee's linebackers were not very good last year. Tennessee's wide receivers took a massive step back last year. Tennessee's offensive line was solid last year, but certainly, could be better, but was, all things considered, was very solid last year, and especially in the run game. These three position battles need somebody to step up and run with that spot. You've got a couple guys you feel good about, but you need somebody to step up and say, no fear, no doubt, this is my job. That didn't happen, especially at left guard in spring, as we knew it wouldn't. That didn't happen at wide receiver in spring because there was too many guys out. And honestly, not a perfectly clean look at linebacker either, because Keenan Pili was still a bit banged up and Aaron Carter didn't get a look as he was not 100%. Fall camp, linebacker number 2, wide receiver number 2, and left guard number 1, if you will. Those are my three position battles I am watching when fall camp begins July 31st, 1st of August, just weeks away. Can't wait for that. And of course, it'll be football time in Tennessee here before we know it. When we come back, second-year players expecting a major leap for Tennessee in 2024. That's coming up next as we continue on here with a Monday edition of Locked On Vols. I want to tell you about my friends over at Game Time. Game Time is an app to where you can download, put in the promo code LOCKEDONCollege, and when you do that, you're going to get 20% off your first purchase. Again, Locked On College is that promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. What is Game Time? Well, it's an app to where you can purchase tickets for the entertainment events in your area. Yes, I use it for sporting events. Basketball tickets, baseball tickets, football tickets, but you can also use it for concerts, for comedy shows, for theater, whatever's in your area, not just limited to everything going on at Thompson Bowling Arena, the Food City Center, at Neyland Stadium, at Lindsey Nelson Stadium, what's going on at the Bijou Theater on Gay Street, the Tennessee Theater, things happening in and around Knoxville or in your hometown as well. Chances are, if there's an event in your area, sporting or entertainment of some kind, look for a ticket on the Game Time app, and they are going to hook you up with views from your seat, the lowest price guarantee, Game Time ticket coverage, all-in pricing, zone deals, flash deals as well, all that and more over on the Game Time app. Plus, put in that promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today, last-minute ticket, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, guys, it is a Monday edition of Locked On Vols. Appreciate you guys for being here. Don't forget your Twitter Tuesday edition of the show, or X Tuesday mailbag edition. That's coming up tomorrow at _Kaner at Locked On Vols. And, of course, the Locked On Vols on the YouTube channel. You guys can submit your questions, and that is where I will find them. All right, let's get into second-year players who need to be taking big-time leaps for Tennessee, who I'm expecting to take big-time leaps for Tennessee. And it's kind of create it your own, make it your own, if you will. The majority of these are truly second-year players, but one is a second year in the system player, meaning Tennessee got him from the transfer portal. I'll get to that here in a moment. But first, a couple of honorable mentions. I do think, as I mentioned his name in segment number 1, I do think John Slaughter is a guy that's going to play an awful lot this year. I think he's got high upside. I think Tennessee did make him a priority early on in that class of 2023, and didn't see an awful lot of playing time last year. There's opportunity there this year for sure. There's opportunity for him to be the first safety off the bench, or to be that second safety off the bench, or push for playing time. And I like his skill set. I like his athletic ability. But it's up to him. He's got to have a big time camp. And then David Hobbs as well, who's going to be in the rotation, who got a little bit of playing time last year. We know about that defensive line rotation. It's massive. Tennessee's going to go with Rodney Gardner about 11 to 13 deep. And David Hobbs is going to be a part of that, but also former 5-star and can really be the dude in 2025. Is going to be a player here this year as well. I'm expecting big things and a leap from David Hobbs as well. But number 5, it is one of those players that Tennessee got from the transfer portal prior to last season. I have talked about him at length during spring practice. You guys are probably tired of me talking about him. And I pumped him up this time last year as well. I said, hey, this dude, good season, gone on to the NFL draft. And it was a bust for all intents and purposes. Always going to add that disclaimer in there that he was coming around. He was looking really, really good when they finally put him in the right position prior to a season-ending injury. But, of course, I'm talking about Dont'e Thornton. Not a sophomore, but a sophomore in the system, if you will, second-year player. And he had arguably the best spring practice of anybody for Tennessee. we see these players take second-year leaps in the Josh Heupel system, and we see it happen, and fruits of the labor are just produced all over the place, right? Jalen Hyatt's an easy one to kind of make a good point to that direction, if you will. Even Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker was fine his first year in the system, in my opinion. Obviously took over the starting job and did some good things, but Hendon Hooker in 2022 was on another level, right? Could that be Dont'e Thornton? We will see, but I'm expecting a big-time leap for him, and certainly when he was actually playing in the correct position, and I get they try to make the slot receiver the go-to guy, and with his blend of speed and size and strength, I get it. But it just didn't work out for Dont'e Thornton in the slot. Not like a Jalen Hyatt, not like a Velus Jones, not even like a Squirrel White. Squirrel White's going to play. I expect Dont'e Thornton to be on the outside, and I'm expecting a big leap from him. All right, true sophomores now, or redshirt freshmen. Cam Seldon. Of course, we'll have to see exactly when he will make Tennessee's debut in 2024. Will he be ready for the start of the season? Will he miss a couple games? Will he be out a month? I don't know what the case is. Right now, we'll get a better look at it, once fall camp starts, and we'll see exactly what he's doing and how much he's allowed to be doing. Of course, having a shoulder operation there in spring practice, but he's going to get a whole lot of playing time. When healthy. He's going to be RB2. He's going to be the change of pace type of back, complimenting Dylan Sampson, and they can do a whole lot of different things with him. Deebo Samuel was the comp during his recruiting days, and I hate comparing these guys before they even take a college snap, especially to an all-pro in the NFL. But his ability to line up in the slot, catch passes out of the backfield, run between the tackles now is something he's learning. Jerry Mack just loved Cam Seldon, even though we didn't play an awful lot last year. It's why losing Jalen Wright to the draft, obviously, and losing Jabari Small to the draft and all that, even though he had, both those guys had extra years of eligibility left, was not a huge blow because of all the faith they have in Cam Seldon. So get healthy first, and then, get over here and let's see what you can do. I'm expecting a big-time leap from Cam Seldon to be a guy in this offense in 2024. Number 3, give me Arian Carter. I thought Arian Carter, he got better as the year went on. Of course, he missed the last, 5-6 games or whatever of the season with injury, but he played a lot early on. I thought initially he was kind of like, he came in and he was so fluid and he looked so good, and they tried to put some weight on him a little bit before the season, and they did, and I thought it kind of slowed him down a little bit. I thought early on in the 23 season when Carter would get in there, he looked a little stiff, looked a little timid. Not like I saw him in fall camp, in spring practice a little bit of last year, but he got better as the year went on and started making some plays and made a really nice play in the back of the end zone, deflecting a pass there in October. I forgot who they were playing, but started to get a little bit better. And, all the tools are there, athleticism. Remember, this is a running back commit for Memphis, before Tennessee got on the flip and played linebacker after he, burst onto the scene as a recruit his senior year of high school at Smyrna High School in the mid-state of Tennessee. Got all the tools, all the intangibles, athleticism, hips, feet, strength, knowledge, and I loved his attitude in spring practice this year. Like he had on shorts and a jersey, and he would go through and do as much as he could. And when they're under the cage and everything, and you're going through steps and all that type of stuff, and you're wearing your helmet because you're under the cage. And a guy that did drills under the cage, you hit your head a ton, right? It would hurt without a helmet on, but it teaches you to stay low. He's under there doing that stuff. He's doing as much as he can. I guess I should say that the coaches are allowed to see from him. I love the eagerness in fall camp or in spring practice, I guess I should say. And I think Arian Carter is going to take a big-time step this year. Hopefully he stays healthy. Number 2 is going to be Ethan Davis. Ethan Davis redshirted last year. Of course, we know that Tennessee likes to play 2 tight ends. Originally, these coaches often said that they wanted to play 3 tight ends. We have not truly seen that. Maybe Miles Kitzelman from Alabama, who we thought was not going to have a big-time role, but really had a great spring for Tennessee and showed that he can not only play in space, but excel in space and do inline blocking and stuff. But he comes over from Alabama, didn't have a big time role at all. But he comes in with Holden Stays, who is the big time target and get from Notre Dame in the transfer portal, coupling him with Ethan Davis, who played pretty much wide receiver in high school, big time athlete, really, really good athlete. needed that redshirt year to practice inline stuff, hand in the dirt stuff, H-back stuff, and he's considerably coming along a little bit. When he has gotten some PT, I think he's looked really, really good. Fragile, though, man. Need to put him in bubble wrap for sure. But I think Ethan Davis has potential to be great in this system, and that's why he's here. And he's going to get a whole lot of playing time, and he will lead that room. He will be tight end 1 if healthy, and Holden States is tight end 2. But as fans and everything, and sometimes even media, we get so caught up in, depth chart, starter, second string, third string. Guys, football is a rotational position, and if you look at the numbers, and I've written about it, and I've talked about it on the show the last couple of years, the tight end position specifically is a straight split. It is 50-50. Go look at the numbers with Jacob Warren and Princeton Fant in 2022. Go look at the numbers of McCallum Castles and Jacob Warren last year. It is about as 50-50 as you could possibly get. So Ethan Davis and Holden Stage are certainly going to play those tight end spots. I'm intrigued to see how much Miles Kitzelman will play as well. But I think Ethan Davis, man, he's just an athlete. Really, really good athlete. And learning how to play tight end in this system, I think he's going to be good. So I'm expecting a second-year leap from him. And then number 1, of course, is Nico. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this one. Nico technically got a red shirt last year. He was the backup quarterback for Joe Milton. Came in, played in some blowouts. We know about that. We know about the Iowa game. We know how good he looked. Didn't have to throw it all over the place, really, because Tennessee ran it all over the place and got some good plays from the defense as well. But was 12 of 19, 151 yards and a passing touchdown, no interceptions. We know about him running all over Iowa that allowed only 4 rushing touchdowns all year leading into the bowl game. And Tennessee's Nico Iamaleava ran for 3 against Iowa, and I thought that was just fantastic. But, of course, going to play an awful lot more. With playing time becomes lessons learned. The speed of the game, he's going to continue to learn that, get used to that. He's going to make mistakes. He is not going to be perfect. He will turn the football over. I mean, he's not. I mean, even when Hendon Hooker came in here, Hendon came here as a 5th year, right? Played 5th and 6th years here at Tennessee before going into the NFL draft. Yeah, I mean, Hendon was a veteran, had played some football. I mean, Nico's going to be his first year starting, not only in the system, but as a collegiate quarterback. So he's going to get better significantly. But I expect the Nico that's going to, snap the football and play against Oklahoma in week 4 to be a better version of the Nico that snaps the football and plays against NC State in week 2. Like, he's going to get better and better every single week. So, second-year players that I think are going to take big-time leaps for Tennessee. Number 5, Dont'e Thornton, second year in the system, albeit transfer portal. Number 4, Cam Seldon. Number 3, Arian Carter. Number 2, Ethan Davis. And number 1, Nico Iamaleava. Appreciate you guys for always giving me some segment topics. Really, really do appreciate that. Coming up in segment number 3, Michael Bratton, cousin Shane over that SEC podcast, ranked the quarterbacks for the 2024 season in the SEC. That and more. Where's Nico Iamaleava, and how low is he? Coming up next here in segment number 3 of a Monday edition of Locked On Vols. Stay tuned. Okay, so I'm going to have on Michael Bratton, who is the host of that SEC podcast, hopefully on tomorrow's show. So really, really looking forward to that. So he can come in and kind of walk us through why he ranked which quarterback where and all that, 1 through 16. But I did reach out to him. I said, hey, I sent him the graphic that they made and they tweeted out at that SEC podcast on X. And I said, this is your rankings, right? I mean, you're not reacting to somebody else, CBS, Athlon, whatever. And he's like, no, these are my rankings based on how I see these quarterbacks producing when it's all said and done in 2024. So not necessarily entering. This is what Michael Bratton believes that that the SEC quarterbacks, how they're going to finish essentially from this season. So that is kind of the basis on how he went about these rankings. His rankings are, first and foremost, no spoilers, Nico Iamaleava comes in at number 6. 6 out of 16. Certainly not bad whatsoever. The quarterbacks in front of Nico that Michael believes, SEC Mike believes, will ultimately have better seasons than Nico. Number 1, Brady Cook of Missouri. Number 2, Jackson Dart of Ole Miss. Number 3, Carson Beck of Georgia. Number 4, Quinn Ewers of Texas. And number 5, Jalen Milroe of Alabama. I mean, I sit here and I say it's hard to argue right now because, again, Nico's going to be a first-year starter in the SEC. All these guys have played a whole lot of football in front of him. all except for, Ewers have played a lot of football in this league, in this conference, but, Quinn Ewers has played in the college football playoff. He's been a 2-year starter for Texas, albeit there's been some injuries in there. So it's hard for me to argue that I think Nico's going to have a better season than any of those right now on the onset. Now, we know football's wacky. Some of these guys are going to get hot. Some of these guys are not. Some of these guys are going to get hurt. I get all that. But, I don't think there's any shame in Nico's name appearing behind those 5 to kick things off. Now, if Nico's name was behind the guy behind him, Graham Mertz at Florida, Garrett Nussmeier of LSU is at 8, Connor Wagman, A&M is number 9, Jackson Arnold, Oklahoma's number 10, then yeah, we can have some issues here. Sure, Graham Mertz had a pretty good year in the SEC last year, albeit much, much better than he had in Wisconsin, and I was really, really tough on Graham Mertz last year. I'm sure he heard and used it as motivation, right? I'm sure he was listening to Locked On Vols, but he had a year that surprised the heck out of me, to be completely honest with you. But good on him, right? Good on him, whatever. Nico's ceiling is just so much higher than that of Graham Mertz. I think if Nico goes out there and plays average football this year, he will be a better quarterback in this league than Graham Mertz. That's just how good Nico's, I guess, how high the floor is for Nico. You know what I'm saying? Even though Graham Mertz is very much experienced, I have no issue with Nico being in front of him. Garrett Nussmeier's seen a whole lot of playing time as a backup quarterback at LSU over the years. Now the keys are in his hands for Brian Kelly. We'll see what happens there. Connor Wagman, again, is pretty decent quarterback when healthy, but he's not had a whole lot of success in terms of staying healthy. I remember last year he had a season-ending injury. I'm intrigued to see what he looks like in that offense. Some people are super high on him. Others, well, just kind of middle of the road, just like on this quarterback rankings list for that SEC podcast. And then there's Jackson Arnold, who could be one of the better quarterbacks in the country, in a couple years. He, like Nico, former 5-star prospect, just need to get reps. Just needs to get some playing time in a big way. So I have no issue with what those rankings look like behind Nico. And then coming in the bottom third of the list there, Taylon Green, of course, coming over from Boise State. He'll be the starting quarterback for Arkansas. Lenora Sellers, a redshirt freshman, is going to be the starting quarterback for South Carolina this year. Brock Vandegrift, coming over from Georgia, now at Kentucky. He'll be the starting quarterback for the Wildcats. Peyton Thorne getting the nod again at Auburn. First year for Auburn. Last year coming over from Michigan State. Very so-so. Very, very so-so, leaving a lot to be desired, that being Peyton Thorne for Hugh Freeze over there trying to turn things around in a hurry at Auburn. Blake Shapen, I believe is how you say his name, coming over from Baylor, new starting quarterback for Jeff Lebby at Mississippi State. He's had a pretty solid career overall. And Diego Pavaya, I believe is how you say his name. If not, I do apologize. Coming over from New Mexico State, now at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's quarterback room completely left, and they had to reshuffle the deck in a hurry. That being Diego Pavaya, coming over from New Mexico State, comes in at number 16 in this list for that SEC podcast. So again, I really have no issue with this list, to be completely honest with you. And this is how SEC Mike perceives the end of the season. He's making these rankings saying, okay, at the end of the season, this is what I project these rankings will be. Brady Cook has got the best 1-2 combination, or the best quarterback wide receiver combination in the league with Luther Burden. Okay, Jackson Dart had a really good season last year. I think Jackson Dart is severely overhyped and overrated compared to a lot of other quarterbacks that franchise has had, that school has had. I think Ole Miss fans believe Jackson Dart's like one of the best to ever do it. And I mean, I think he's solid, but I don't think that he's one of the best to ever do it in that school's history. But nonetheless, have no issue with him being there at number 2 because he had a really solid year last year. Carson Beck, well, when you got the best toys to play with and when you have a really, really good offensive line, it's easy to be pretty good. So I have no issue there. Ewers, as I mentioned, Jalen Milroe, who was college football playoff quarterback last year, Heisman contender, can do an awful lot there in the number 5 spot. So because Nico is coming in behind those 5 are established, those 5 are experienced, makes a whole lot of sense. If Nico's projection was to come behind Graham Mertz, Nussmeier, Wagman, Arnold, Green, Sellers, Vandegrift, Thorne, Shapen, or Vanderbilt starting quarterback and Diego Pavaya, I would think I would have some issue with that, because if Nico is who we believe he is, if Nico is who the coaching staff believes he is, then he'll be contending with the likes of Jalen Milroe and Quinn Ewers and Carson Beck and Jackson Dart and Brady Cook to be the best in the SEC. So hopefully we'll have SEC Mike on the show to kind of come in and talk about how he navigated through making these rankings, maybe on tomorrow's show, but we'll for sure have mailbag questions. I will answer those in tomorrow's show at _Caner, at Locked On Vols, Locked On Vols on the YouTube channel. All those places is where I will accept mailbag questions. Appreciate you guys, as always, for making Locked On Vols your first listen each and every single morning. Shout out you everydayers for being the best and making this show what it is. Tell your friend, tell your ball friend about this show. Let's continue to get it growing in the right direction, as we're just a couple weeks away from football camp starting. SEC Media Days happening next week. And once SEC Media Days gets here, and we know it's about football time in Tennessee. I appreciate you guys for taking in a Monday edition of Locked On Vols. We'll be back on Tuesday. Until then, enjoy the rest of your Monday, everybody.